We partner with the Exponential Science Foundation team to bring the governments the access to education on blockchain. And today, I will give you a brief overview, and after that, I will give word to Aaron, and then to make sure that you understand the content of the Government Blockchain Academy. And I want to start. So, I want to start with you, how we started where we are now. So last year, in partnership with the Algorand Foundation, we then launched the first ever tailored blockchain academy for the UN ecosystem. Our aim was to make sure that our colleagues across UNDP understand that blockchain is not only crypto, but actually it is something that they can utilize across their work. That is why we wanted to launch it, and we had the open call last year in November. Of course, we expected some interest, that is why we put our efforts, but seeing that after 3 weeks of the open call, we have received more than 650 applicants from 21 UN entities. So it was very quite surprising and interesting for our team to see that. And following that, we launched our academy in January, and then the training took place for 4 months. So it was both recorded lectures as well as live sessions. And for us, it was very important that the technology was explained in a very simple way. I was in so many calls with our blockchain partners, and sometimes I felt like I don't understand anything because they use a language that's very difficult to understand. So we made sure that the language that we present in our academy is quite simple and to the point. And then seeing that actually 300 colleagues graduated from the academy was a very positive result for us. And after that, we did not want them to only learn about blockchain, and then forget about the blockchain education. We also want them to pilot projects on blockchain. That is why then we launched the SDG Blockchain Accelerator. By the end of this year, we are going to have more than 40 pilots. And seeing and looking at each cases, we could see that the pilots were actually also collaborating with the governments. So our country offices, they were, engaging with the different ministries, Ministry of Agriculture or different ministries, to make sure that their pilots was also engaged with them. Then we thought through and we said, why not bring this education to the government? That is why then we partnered with our Exponential Science Foundation team, and it was important that it has to be a agnostic organization. And we focused on the 5 pillars, and the pillars that we picked, we looked at the overarching thematic focuses on blockchain, and then what could be relevant. That is why we have these 5 pillars. That is the inclusive digital finance, then the transparent governance, supply chain integrity, climate resilience, and digital identity solutions. They completely match with our blockchain academy for the UN, and we picked it because we believe that this can be, something relevant for the governments. And then, our mission is, as we have been talking about it, to make sure that blockchain is accessible and to be able to understood by the public institutions. And then our vision, of course, we are UNDP, so we would like to impact the lives of people of the countries that we operate, and we are operating in more than 170 countries. And as mentioned, we wanna be kind of the mediator between the blockchain protocols and then the governments to make sure that they understand how they can utilize blockchain. But very important aspect for us is that we will not teach governments everything that I mentioned from the 5 pillars. If they want to learn, of course we can do that. But for us, it's so important that we have a tailor-based approach and then make sure that the government gets what they need. So we don't want to be pushing on a topic, but we want to address the challenge that they want to address with blockchain. And we partner with Exponential Science Foundation team, as I mentioned, and for us it was important that, as UNDP, of course, we have to be an agnostic organization, and then we wanted to find an institution that is also agnostic and knows about blockchain and does research. That is why then we talk with them and discuss with them several aspects how we can collaborate on this. And for us, the important thing is that, as UNDP, we are going to bring access to the governments and make sure our country offices on the ground are then connecting us to the relevant ministries. But then our partners will come, such as the Exponential Science Foundation, and they will make sure that the education is tailor-based for the governments, and then they are quite easy to understand. That is why we want to launch it, and we are going to select 3 to 4 countries next year. We hope to start February or March, depending on the countries, holiday periods and so on. And we will select the countries based on the needs, of course. Also, we are going to select a country that is really interested on blockchain and to learn more about it. Now I give word to Aaron to tell you a bit more about the content of education.
Hi everybody, I'm Aaron Sanchez. I'm head of partnerships at Exponential Science. Before I get into the program, because I want to lay out the program for you, I do want to give you a little bit of background of why Exponential Science is even here at the table. And that's like Burcu said. Our co-founder, Nikhil and Paolo, co-founders, he's going to be speaking after me. They started UCL Blockchain Research Center in 2016. Bringing academia into the blockchain space at that time was quite forward-thinking. So through that, after a couple of years of bringing that research center to excellence, they started a foundation, Exponential Science Foundation, and really built out the capacity across research, focusing on blockchain, now AI and quantum. And we've expanded not only to research, but trying to bridge that gap from, and like we list there, from the academia and research to the industry. Because that's a needed layer, especially, as you can imagine, when you're dealing with governments. Academia brings that level of trust. The UN brings the accessibility and those years of experience driving change. And so with us two, we believe we can open that gate up for industry to, so that solutions can be implemented and impact driven. So with that background set, I want to go through the program and how we plan to do that. So this is the roadmap, and I want you to keep in mind it needs to be country specific, but this is the outline. So it is going to have to be a breathable, adaptable program to the country's needs. But first off, the online program for education, there's a lot of it, and it's all pretty great. But you need that physical buy-in with the governments. You need to invest them, both on a minister level, but also their teams, because the only way change is going to happen is if you get them invested across all the levels and thinking about it. So we're starting off with a physical in-person event because that is to get the buy-in. Then we go on online learning, and we're very well aware that finance minister for example, is probably not going to be do online education. However, the teams will, and that's the buy-in we need to get so that they can educate both up and down of that funnel of government stakeholders. And then we're going to get them together after that learning to do solution design. And I'm going to go through this as we speak. So, like I said, the tailored workshops, creating awareness, creating that investor buy-in, online learning, going from beginner, intermediate, and advanced. We need to start with Bitcoin is not just what blockchain is all about. And that is the level we are talking about. We are talking about a very basic level. We need to upgrade them to intermediate and advanced. And in advanced is where we start getting into the solution design and the specific use cases. And the use case workshops are important because ultimately we are not the builders. We are the educators, we're the academia, but this is where we invite the builders, the protocols, the layer ones and their ecosystems to present the use cases of what is, if we're speaking to Malaysia, what is Guatemala doing already in blockchain that could be implemented here. And that's where we need the industry to come and support this education process. And then ultimately, we want this to be, if we only succeed with education, that's a fantastic and noble goal. But we want this to actually drive change and drive to implementation. So that's where we are going to bring in a third party to design an independent RFP process and advisory, working with the government, knowing their needs. Because ultimately the decision is going to be the government's. And so that's where we bring them in, design that process, and they're going to then invite the different layer ones and other ecosystems to support their projects who have solutions that can bid for the RFP and ultimately win that implementation challenge. And then post RFP, that's, our hands are off. We're here to facilitate. We're not here to sell, but we're here to facilitate and make sure that a project gets implemented. And so we're going to support that ecosystem, but this is where the winning RFP, they take that project and they drive it to implementation with the government hand in hand for that particular challenge. Now, the prompt, we see that with winning this RFP come through a few different ways. One is a direct solution to the problem. Ideally, in a perfect world, there's a plug-and-play solution. but we know that's not realistic due to the idiosyncrasies of each government. And then we have the accelerating incubation solution to proposed outcome. That's a solution that might need to be incubated. And the third option is possibly that come from building from scratch. So, like Burcu was saying, we are planning on doing a government blockchain academy pilot with 3 countries across 3 different continents. Right now, we have very promising talks with Malaysia. They seem very interested. Our program fits in with that country's program. We want to do one in Latin America and then one in Central Asia, Eastern Europe, Central Asia. We want this program to be a sustainable program that grows and expands more countries. And we don't want to leave each country, here's your education, bye-bye, we don't see you again. We want this to create ecosystems, building ecosystems. So this is, in some ways, the foot in the door that gets the government engagement, educates all levels, and we start to create that process of how do we get these ecosystems and solutions to naturally happen on their own. And we see this as an exciting way to work with the UN to promote blockchain and digital solutions, and ultimately, we want this program to impact lives. We want people educated, we want projects implemented, but we want that impact in changing lives.